Hi, Kelly. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
We were talking about needing a settling vibe right now because I've had some major tech issues today, and I just asked you about something in the cosmos, and yeah, there's stuff going on, right?
A lot of things happening. Yeah, so many things at once. It's just piling up, and we're all very emotionally tapped in, and so it feels
Yes.
like breaking levels and layers of breaking.
Yes. So this is a good podcast to have today, to help settle a little bit. At least for me,
Yeah.
purely selfish. So, so if you would, I know I've introduced you already on my podcast before as my mentor through Spirit Baby work, which I am eternally grateful for. Thank you so much. You've opened up a big part of me that I denied for a long time, and you helped me be okay with it. So, but I'd like to talk a little bit about other stuff today, specifically medical intuition. But first, if you could you just give us like a mini bio of sorts, like who are you and what do you do and how did you come to do this work?
I know, that's always the question. Well, I call myself Spirit Baby Medium, which is a name I created, and Medical Intuitive, and kind of a new kind of title, and there's Mentor, because I do mentor people in different ways, and grieving mentorship as well, and grieving, in school mentorship with healers and Spirit Baby communication. I don't know if it's something as a career you think about going into. I think it just happens to you, as you know. And if
Yep.
somebody would have told me that years ago, I would have been like, I don't know about that. I don't know what that is. And so much new all the time in my kind of world is always unfolding. And so I want to give you like a short piece of this. I started communicating with babies more than 10 years ago, but I didn't really know what was happening. I just thought maybe I was making it up. It was my imagination, which is always a really fun thing, right? And so I started talking about the things that I saw, and I realized that my very deep creative imagination as a child was a lot more. It was a lot more than I realized. It was clairvoyance, clairsentience, and as I became older and had a lot of different hardships and really breaking down to heal different parts of myself, I started to discover more of that. And so, and then I started to work around pre-birth communication and trying to connect around the world with other pre-birth communication researchers and people. And there wasn't many people actually that I could find really doing that, more now than ever. I feel like now there's so many gifted, intuitive baby medium people that you're one of them, to bring in this next connection for conscious conception and for humanity. And so it just kind of created that way. And with the medical intuition is a big piece of that. That was always there, but I never fully, fully invested in it, jumped into it, and was like, okay, I'm ready to do this and be a part of it, because there is a lot to it. There is a level of deepening. There's a process to it, and so that came more strongly a few years ago. And then along that was with the grief work as well.
Yeah.
So a little sum up of it.
Yes. So you're saying that you realized this was not an actual like this is what I'm going to grow up and be. It was more like fluid, like you realized, oh, this is something that not many people are in tune with or tapped into.
Yeah, and just the way I perceive and see things, it took me many years to realize it was different than other people, and then just having that communication, and then I realized I was actually quite good at it, and so I thought, oh, and people keep coming, and I thought, oh, this is a beautiful way to be of service in a way to let people see things that maybe they can't see, but they feel in their bodies.
Yes.
And it's like, let's put some more understanding to it and bring it to another level of physical, emotional, and spiritual healing.
Yes. Yeah, you moved through that trusting part too. That because I know I definitely was in that headspace of this isn't real. Come on.
It's true.
Yeah. So
I feel like that happens to most of us, though.
Yeah.
We question that a lot, and this is what I do with the students, because I've been there and I've seen a lot and I've done it. And I notice the more that we speak about it, we expand into it and we trust in it, then we bring that information forward, and there's truth to it. There's validation.
Yes.
And some things, as we talk about, some things, I'm like, I don't know what that is. And you say it, you share it, you go, I see this, but I'm not sure. Or some things are very more concrete, like, oh, look, do you have Crohn's disease? What is this? Like, some things are more like, oh, there's something about the liver, and other things are, oh, there's some energy around the space. So it's like there's so many different parts to it. And not one is right or wrong. It's just information being translated and shared in a way that's helpful and supportive.
That's so amazing. So we're not going to get into spirit baby stuff today, although my audience is like, yes, more spirit baby stuff. And there's more spirit baby stuff coming, I promise. But today I really want to bring forth this topic of medical intuition. The first time that I heard about medical intuition was from a series, believe it or not, of cassette tapes that a fellow therapist loaned to me from Carolyn Mace. And she's a world-renowned medical intuitive. And my friend gave it to me, not so subtly, to figure out fertility issues. And when Carolyn Mace talked about second chakra stuff and how that's manifested in the body, I was like, oh yeah, that might be my thing. But can you, for people who don't know anything at all about medical intuition, can you just say what is it and how does it assist the medical community, and just riff on that for a little bit?
Yeah. So what you're saying, you talk about Carolyn Mace. She is the creator of the term medical intuition.
Okay. And
she collaborated with Dr. Norm Shealy. They have an amazing book called Medical Intuition, Your Awakening to Wholeness. And I highly advise it for anybody working in any of that world, but even just if you want to learn about your body. And so I'm not going to say enough about him, but he's like I want to say neurobiologist, scientist, doctor. He's done a lot of work. Yes. And they collaborated, and her accuracy, her connection is so strong. And so medical intuition, it's a very confusing term for a lot of people, because some people say, oh, you have to be in doing medical things. Like you have to be a nurse, or you have to be, a physician's assistant or whatever, but it doesn't always work that way. Yeah, you can be in those fields and be highly medically intuitive and collaborate them together. But because I have no medical degree or medical background, but I have the intuitive ability to see like disease in people's body and the way tissues are and the way energy moves. I see sometimes past lives, current lives, and issues. So some would say it's like an X-ray into the body, and every medical intuitive works a little bit differently. And so I feel like a lot of clairvoyance energy, clairsentience, clairaudience, a lot of those clairs can easily be, worked through into the body. But there is a learning, it's like there's a learning when it comes to understanding the body and knowing things. Because I know in my own practice throughout the years, I'm starting to see more genetic stuff. And I don't know anything about genetics. I'm not a geneticist.
Oh, wow.
But I know that I see codes and numbers and colors. And sometimes I try to, for fun, after, like I see people on Google, like, are these actually real things? And some of them do come up. And so, I don't know. And it's not everybody, it's just certain people have certain energies that are more transparent to read and see this information that must be really valuable in that time. And so I feel like medical intuition, it could definitely be described in different ways. But for me, I feel like, it's more, seeing into the physical, emotional, and spiritual body and bringing that information in a way that people can then, prepare, like if it's in conception, preparing and creating what is the next step, what does it look like, is there intervention, is there no intervention, little intervention, and then kind of pulling it together. But I do feel like people could be their own, I call it inner medical intuitives.
Yes, well, that was on my list of questions to ask. How do people do that? How do you encourage, and I don't know if there's a training, or I don't know what people can do. How do people do that?
I know. Well, there are very few trainings, I would say, around being a medical intuitive, like in your practice of, acupuncture, holistic therapies, medical doctor. But when it comes back to the individual person, I feel like it's more about your embodiment practice. This is why yoga is good, breathing's good, and there are ways to do it. I feel like you have to begin with your physical body. Like this is the vessel, and how are you connecting? And what are the ways that you could pay attention to why energy moves? Because, it does feel like sometimes we say body, mind, it does feel like there's such a separation. Like my body right now is doing things, like it's breathing and my heart's beating. I don't have to like know that it's doing that at every moment.
Right.
But I can tune into energies in my own body and like, I have my own stuff that's like been there, ancestral stuff I have in my sacral myself. And I'm like, oh, there's that again. And it creates a lot of stirred energy. And it's like, what am I doing then to go kind of deep underneath it and work with it? And so I do feel like our own inner medical intuitive can be done in different ways because we have to know ourselves well enough to check in. I feel like in American culture, I should speak of specifically because that's where I am, is that it's everybody runs to the doctor when something's wrong. Nobody wants to sit and like listen and pay attention to what's happening. And I hear it all the time with people, and I'm going, oh, that's strange. Why would they run to the doctor? They're throwing up. Like, okay, lay on the couch, take some ginger. I'm not saying to, go into dehydration and it gets to like some weird infection. But it's like, this is where we teach embodiment before you're sick, before you're in conception, before you're in pregnancy. It's like, who is my body? Where am I? And it's really a self-discovery. And it's fun because it's fun and it's loving and caring to be able to pay attention. And you don't have to have all the answers. That's where people get confused. Well, I missed that I had cancer even, or I missed that I had this autoimmune thing, or I'm like, did you miss it, or was it there and the energy was just bubbling up? It's really, I feel like, comes back to perception. So it's like, what is your perception of your body and your space and your environment? And now, especially in 2020, forget about it. People are like upside down, don't know, walking on the ceiling, and so I feel like, wow, a lot of the things I've experienced 20 years ago, I've had so many awakenings 20 years ago, I feel like a lot of people are going through it now. And so I must have had like a pre part of that to see, so then I could be more stable, really, to be supportive to see. But that's kind of, some of the ways to build that embodiment practice, really.
Yeah, I like what you said too about, well, two things. One, focusing on the body. And I think that fertility people are really good at that. They're really good at tuning in. They just need to maybe do it in a calmer, non-anxious way. But the other thing that you said that I was like, yes, is that folks can tune into their bodies to offer a preemptive strike, so you will, like, or if you will, right? Like notice things before even a medical doctor would notice it. They might be like, there's nothing going on. And you're like, yes, I feel something going on. But then what do you advise folks to do if they know, or they have an intuition, or you have an intuition that something's up? What next? What happens next?
I've told people when I get very strong intuitive connections with people about certain medical issues, I said, you got to bring this to your doctor. Do something with this. It doesn't hurt to do that, right? That's the whole piece. Like, it never hurts. But we also have to realize we can't look at doctors as gods and goddesses, because they make mistakes a lot.
Sure.
And this is where I have a good story of a woman, and this is when I first started medical intuition, and she came for conception, and I wasn't doing the medical intuition as of yet, but then I did afterwards, because I kept talking about her lungs. I said, oh, there's something on the lungs. And she said, I'm having a hard time breathing lately. And the doctor just says, it's fine. It's just a strain. She goes, no, but I feel like it's something more. And I said, you really have to pay attention to that. What do you want to do with that? Because it's not about my intuition, really. It's about their intuition.
Yeah.
And so the woman, like weeks later, messages me, and it was the most incredible message. She said, you were so pushing my intuition to look into my lungs. And she goes, I pushed the doctor. The doctor finally did this scan of my lungs and found I had all these blood clots in my lungs.
Wow.
And he said if I didn't get to it, he said that she probably would have died in a few weeks.
Oh my God.
He just kept pushing it off with her. Like, wow. Oh no, you just have a strain, nothing's wrong. And she was just like, and she said, because I was like, I mentioned her lungs, that came up. And then I offered her this other donation session of like, hey, let's look at your lungs. And then I started going deeper, looking at it, and I said, oh, there's a connection to a parent and grief, and I didn't know that she lost her parent when she was a child.
Oh, wow.
And so there's the emotional connection. So what's wrong with her? What's going on with her lungs? Our lungs are very much the embodiment of where our grief energy goes, initially, because our grief can end up in any part of our body and energy field. But there's something about the lungs and the heart space. And so for her, it was connected to her childhood of being a young girl, a young child, losing her father, and the grief was, is built up to this level of connection. And not to blame people either. This is where people get scared with the whole New Age thing. Like, oh, well, she made herself sick. She just reacted to her environment and her sadness of her father not being here anymore. It's like there's sadness in that. And so, and I'm seeing the information. I'm going, I'm just going to say it and see. This was in the beginning when I started doing it, going, and then when I was getting caught, I was like, oh, okay, then it makes me see, oh, this is how energy runs. This is where, what is happening. And then she did actually go on to conceive a child. Because she had to take care of her health first, right? And then figure that out. But it was, I feel like that, just sharing that is just one example of like, when I'm seeing something and I'm going, or there's some, preparation on hormones. And I've had a lot of different people email me back and say, oh, you talked about the ovaries and the eggs. I have this thing, it's kind of funny, where I think I've shared this with you before, Maria, where it's like, I can know where people's eggs are.
Yeah.
And their ovaries. I'm like, it sounds funny because like a psychic said, I just tune in and I go, oh, is it the right or the left, or is it both? Is it none? Sometimes it's none. Because the eggs are always in creation. It's always energy that's moving and happening. And so I had a lot of women go to the doctor and report back to me the accuracy, because I think it's funny. And they're like, okay, great, I can know where people's eggs are. I'm like,
let's find your eggs.
But then it feels like a certain density or energy in body, and I look at certain things, especially with conception. A lot of my focus is around reproduction, and I actually did open it up more to broader stuff around sickness and illness, but that's really big. So I kind of pulled it back more and go, okay, let me look at the uterus, the ovaries, the tubes, and some things will be inconsistent. I'll be like, oh, there's a ripple in the uterus. What is that? So I'm like trying to spiritual investigation myself to kind of tune in, and then let's say someone has an issue, then I could go deeper and we can look at the pieces of that.
Yeah. And I love how you're laying this out too, because you're talking about starting with the body, but then moving into other energetic things like emotion and trauma and things like that, which is, it speaks to me because I'm a therapist, but whatever. It's like you start with the body, something that's quite concrete, and then move to other maybe less concrete things, and then you work on that healing part. So that's really cool. So what are there, let's just say like 3 things, like 2 to 3 things that you would suggest for folks that are listening now or watching now to start tapping into their intuition and potentially touch base with medical stuff?
Yeah, as I say, intuition is a daily practice. It's with you every day, all the time. It's not going to be judging you. It's not fear. If you go back and forth with your thoughts, is intuition? It's not intuition. Go outdoors, I would say, be in nature, because the vibration of nature, it is a life force, but it's a different vibration. And most people do very well by the ocean, by water, by the trees, because nature doesn't ask anything of you. And when we're in an environment like a building, there's energy in the building, there's energy in the objects, there's energy from people. It feels like it's asking you to be present with it. And so in nature, you're being present to your body, you're listening. And that's a really nice way. And being really observant, not like judging, like, oh yeah, I have a tension in my neck, or I have an ache in my, bone. It's like, just notice that it's there. This is where the somatic psychology piece comes in from my training. And so you're just kind of paying attention. And the more you do that, you're building upon a connection. Most people, we're such a let's get it done and quick kind of culture, but it's a very slow, intimate process to be embodied, And so I would say, going into nature, listening, and then talking about it. Like, for example, I remember one time I was sitting outside, and I love to share this because it's like, I feel like when I was just kind of scanning through my body, I was like, oh, I feel like my uterus has a cold. Oh. And that's how I would do it. It felt congested. It felt tight. And I'm like, and there was nothing physical happening. It just felt energetic. And so I was just kind of listening to it and observing it. And part of me wanted to fix it, right? I want to fix it.
Yeah.
But even I feel like in the breathing and the intimacy of knowing and sitting with it, actually there is a level of unwinding that then allows the fixing to kind of happen. And some things are more, harder. Some things are more like intensified. This is why we get body work and massage and acupuncture to go like into the deeper.
Yeah.
And those things are great. All these different holistic modalities. Also, anything that's taking you in your body, and even like I said, massage, movement.
Yeah.
But not just being in the physical body, but noticing where energy moves within you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many beautiful energy modalities to learn nowadays can just continue, to bring it. So those, I feel like those may be, I don't know if that was like 3 or 4 different areas
great
to kind of explore and be with.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of slow down and be still and just notice. And definitely being in nature speaks to me too. But what came to my mind as you were talking, I'm thinking about, obviously, specifically fertility folks, people who want to be parents for the first time or again, and how when you're still and you listen to your body, that it's almost like a toddler or a baby saying, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. So then you like simply pay attention in this stillness, and you create healing in that. There's almost like a release in that.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and I'm just like picturing laying on the grass in a field somewhere with like, I'm clairvoyant, so I visualize things. Good. So for folks right now listening to this, get in nature, be still, connect to just listen, just notice your body. Right?
Yeah.
And then do you have people who have, well, you gave an example of one client who had a knowing about her lungs and then was met with resistance with a physician. What do you suggest people do with that? Just keep trying?
We have to see, this is the piece that I feel is so big. This goes even beyond conception, is the lack of self-trust is way too big, especially now. Everything that's going outside of ourselves in fear. People are living in chronic fear.
Yes.
And they're kind of okay with it because that's what they know. But when we're being asked to go inward into a trusting space, it is a practice and it is a project. Because it feels like, am I going off of what others are telling me? Or is this okay? Am I being a good little girl? Am I following orders and ways? And so there's so much energy around that. And this is why a lot of self-reflection, a lot of quiet time, journaling, even connecting with like-minded others that are going to be in a vibration of that level of consciousness. And we all have those friends, right? We can even probably reflect now, like, in these group of friends, some people you could say things that are maybe really out there. And when you're clairvoyant, there's some things that could sound really out there for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
But when you find that like-minded energy of others, it feels like synergy and love and connection and truth. And so, really coming into being pushy with, your environment. That's why when women go from different fertility clinics, it's really hard to know, is it fear or is it, is there some other piece in that? I had a woman recently was, questioning that. And I said, well, what if your vibration was at a certain level and you found this clinic and you really loved it, and then something shifted with the doctor and your own energy? Because whatever expectation you were creating or excitement, the energies can change a lot. They don't always have to be the same. And so I've seen women, moving from different experiences and looking at their fertility journey. And, of course, some going year after year and just doing a lot of intervention. And then their body does become lost with a lot of intervention because it doesn't know what's happening or what's this way, because you're manipulating energy, you're manipulating the physiology. And so there are ways to come back, though. I've seen women come back to their balance, but it does take time. And I know some women are going, wait, I get it. You're on this quick journey and you want your family to be here. But people don't realize that in the slowing down and quiet, there's an acceleration of things that are happening. That's the piece that people are like, right? You've probably seen that.
Oh my, so much. I'm like, it is the most efficient way. If you want to move through this faster, be still. It's like so oxymoronic, but it's true.
And so that is, it's so big. And so, there's so much, personal connection to whatever the journey is for each person. It's so different. And I feel like that's what keeps me busy is I see that everybody is a unique energy. and that whatever their story is, I'm like excited and surprised by some people's stories and what I see and how that works. And I'm going, oh, that's so interesting. And some people, I learn about new things all the time with people, and how that connects and how their body energy moves and what they could do, because some people do have energy that's all over the place. And traumas, though, don't get caught up with traumas. We all have traumas. It's just some people are active energy in their trauma, which means there's some residual and strength in it that wants to be reflected with and looked at. Because I've seen people have a lot of traumas and they have babies. Trauma doesn't, you don't have to be like, oh, this has to be completely healed in order for me to be able to receive. Sometimes it's collaborative, where the receiving of that being is part of the healing. You know, this is why I always say it's not about perfection.
Right.
When it comes to, it's enough. I mean, I've seen women with like one ovary, a few women who conceived after cancer, who they said they would never conceive, endometriosis, and, it really depends on the person. And this is what scares people, because people are individual, and being intuitive, connecting with your intuition on the journey. I tell women, especially if they're going to do IVF, I always say, you got to move really slow. That's my biggest thing. Yes. You can't just be jumping away and doing whatever the doctors want, because you are not a cookie cutter person. And I see women very successfully conceive in that way, depending on their situation, when they move very slowly and they're very intuitive about it. And they're working with the energetic and the emotional space, because physical is just physical. Yeah, okay, great. But what about this emotional, which I know where you see a lot of that in that spiritual space of, this big ball of yarn that needs to be untangled. And that takes space. I want to say not time. Time scares people. It takes space. And energy. How about that?
Yes. Oh, that's perfect. No, that is perfect. It does scare people. It's interesting too. I find this even outside of the medical field, even in things that, I really vibrate well with, like these very esoteric ideas and things. Like I was just talking to an acupuncturist who we were talking about intuition, and I said something about doing things that feel right to you. And he's like, well, I'm not sure I agree with that. I had a patient who had a lot of money and spent like, I don't know, $3,000 or $3,500 to go see some special statue somewhere. And I said, that doesn't sound to me like that's quite intuition, though. That sounds like, to me, that was more desperation talking rather than this still, quiet space. Not that it couldn't have been intuition, but it sounded like this fervor, like I gotta go, instead of holding space for this big thing that's happening.
Well, not even when you say that, it makes me think about, people going into sacred spaces or going to see something, giving them something, but it's like, is it external or is it internal?
Yes.
Like someone could go to like some, statue and pray to it and feel so fulfilled and have a miraculous experience.
Sure.
Someone could go and go, I feel nothing, and this was a waste of my time. And I do feel like, what are we worshiping? Is it inward or outward? And that's a whole other conversation.
That's another one.
Like, I feel like with fertility journey, it's okay to go inward and to look at the beauty and love and worship your own body, even if it feels like it's not working with you. And it's okay to look at the fear and be pissed off and angry and upset or sad, because women, we're supposed to just be all prim and proper and not have any emotions, especially anger or sadness. Yeah. And so I feel like, as there's these two parts to that connection, and we have to be more kinder with ourselves. I feel like, especially now, there's a reason why we're all like in our homes. There's a reason why now that the weather is like, with fires and hurricanes and earthquakes now in places that never have them are happening, because we're still being pushed consciously down inward to go, what are you listening to? Hello? Like, are you paying attention? We're like getting it. And then it's like, and then collectively we're there's pods of energy that are working towards, where are these vibrations going? What will they look like as these, time unfolds?
Man, I could talk to you forever. I mean, we can talk about how this hard stuff is creating potentially some awesome, beautiful change. And I mean awesome in the true sense of the word awesome. Like, wow, that happened. Oh, that's how I feel about the fertility struggle, is it created such awesome change in me. I won't ever stop trying to spread that and help people create that same transformation in themselves. But okay, good. So just a final question, what does a session with you look like? If people are really interested in medical intuition with you, what does a session look like?
Yeah, that's a good one. I know we talked a lot about that just during even mentorship. I use a method I like, and I really encourage people to do it that feel very intuitive, clairvoyant, clairsentient, whatever, any clairs, is paper and pen. And so I have a notebook, and now I've kind of accelerated to the notebook a little bit, and I have a sketch pad, and I have a body that I printed out. And what I do is I like to look at the body in different sections. We can say it's like the chakra system, but it's not a language I use. It's definitely a respective form of energy centers. Mm-hmm. And so I divide it up where looking at the crown, the head, the third eye to me is very important, because where are people's psychic energy? I could tell right away where people are, if they're clairvoyant or empathic, or what is their gift or energy, and how they communicate with the world in the energetic space.
Oh yeah, you picked that up right away. Yeah. First time I talked to you, you're like, you're clairvoyant, are you? I was like, oh, yeah.
It was so quick. I know. There was so much light around your crown. It was so clear and crystalline. I was like, oh, because I don't see a lot of people that are clairvoyant. You think a lot of people maybe would come, but I don't actually.
Oh, interesting.
And so when I see it, it's like it's a very big energy. I was like, oh, there it is, and it's a very deep energy, because it goes into so many realities, and I could see that. And so I know that was fun when I was like, oh, look at that. And that's why sometimes I say things. I go, you can argue with me or not, or because I've seen people have very mediumistic abilities, and I go, they're either going to argue with me on this or they're going to accept it, because some things to me feel, some things feel a little not so strong, and some things feel very, very strong. Mm-hmm. And so I go down the energy field, and I put people in kind of a meditation, because I need them to be quiet and not like think about being nervous or what's this woman going to say to me, because I'm not like the bear. I'm not the Grim Reaper. I'm not going to bring information that feels, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with it? Which, I feel like there's a lot of upliftment and inspiration, and there's a reason for that. Unless we're doing deeper work together on the journey, then we can look at different pieces. But and not to say that dark things won't come up. Of course it will. There's fears, there's certain energies, but I really like to prepare people. Like, what can you do now? What are we doing with this? I'm asking the body, what does it want? What does the higher self want? Looking at that, moving down into the body. I draw a little picture of like a triangle and two circles for the ovaries. I'm like, what do I need to draw? So I'm just listening, and I'm drawing things, and I'm writing words, and it literally looks like, on my Instagram, I posted a few little pages covering the names of the people. It just looks like wildness of like,
oh, I want to see,
pens and writing and scribbling, and it's just really this kind of, map of people. So I'm looking at the physical, I'm looking at the emotional, I'm looking at the mental, and I'm looking at the spiritual, and I pin people on their mental energy, and then they get like, oh my gosh, this woman, how does she see that I'm on the phone with her?
I'm seeing, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, I was like, it's okay, I see your neurotic things, I see how you look at this, it's fine. I was like, I see this all the time, but I want to I need to give a voice to what is being seen and heard, because then they need to soften. This is the point of the session.
Yeah.
What kind of healing are you moving into after this? What information? Because I do feel like through my words and connection that there is energy work being done, is what I've discovered. Because I started to notice that some people have releasing energies in them, and then I go, oh, because I did used to do hands-on energy work years ago, and so I feel like I don't need to do it that way anymore. And so then in that session, I'm also looking at spirit baby energies. I'm listening to them. They're like a whole other group of energy, getting conversation, getting connection, what's happening, and what wants to be shared, and we're looking at that as well. So I feel like there's all these different pieces, and that's more in the long, like 1.5 hour sessions that I offer. But when it's like ongoing, it's a little different. It's more like mini reads, mini energy looks. And,
yes.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's my method, because information, as I've told Maria, information moves so quickly, as you know, and it's nice to be able to write it down. And so I just kind of created that method and routine for me. It works really well, because if I had to sit there and just talk to people, I'd be like, blah, 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 blah. Like, it'd be too long. I'd be like, I like to come back to the words I write, and because sometimes I'm like, oh, what was I saying here, and what is this for them? What do they need to know about this? And then people, they regroup, and so that's kind of what a session looks like.
That's so cool. Now I want to go to your Instagram and see the drawings that you have, because I imagine Also, writing things down. I don't know if this is the same for you, but writing things down, actually physically using a pen and paper, for me helps me slow down. Because you were saying, right, you'll just be like, blah, 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 blah. And it's the same way that I feel about like when Spirit Baby comes through, that they're just like, blah, 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 sometimes, right? They're just like talking. I'm like, slow it down a little bit. Like, I need to receive this. But like writing things down, you taught me that technique of making just, and I'm like a terrible artist, so I just draw a stick figure and like create notes around that. But yeah, so then do people get to take that with them, or that's only for your, translation?
I know someone who does it professionally, where they actually draw and give it to the people, but it does not look like artistry. It's for me. I mean, I've shared images just because it's like, oh my gosh, like there's no way I could make it, because it's just I have a very scribbly writing. I don't have a very clear. Sometimes I write things and I even laugh with some of the clients. I go, oh, wait, I don't know what I wrote. Give me a second. Because I wrote it so quickly, and I'm like, and then my husband always teases me about that. Like, and I look at him, I go, what? This is like, I've been writing this. I don't know. My penmanship is just not there. I'm such a creative visual person, and like I can speak energy very well, but maybe I can't spell things right, or I just scribble.
Yes, I know.
I've accepted that.
Yeah, we're very similar. I remember when, this is a tangent, but then we'll get back on track. When my husband and I were getting married, I was like kind of annoyed that I would have to change my signature, and he's like, "Why? Nobody can read it anyway." I'm like, "Oh yeah."
That's funny, yeah.
So I kept it the
That's
same.
a good one, yeah.
So Kelly, any final words of wisdom or inspiration you'd like to offer folks around medical intuition, or anything else, really?
Just that, start creating an embodiment practice, a connection with yourself. Listen, build what it means to have trust. See the cells of your being in trust, the breath in trust. What would it mean to really trust yourself and begin to listen to that vibration? It's a different vibration. There's a lot of faith in that vibration. It doesn't mean you have to judge yourself and say, oh, well, I'm messed up, therefore I'm not intuitive. You are an intuitive being. You are connected. Baby energy is with you and listening to you. If you're calling in baby energy, they're there, they're present, there are possibilities. And so I would just encourage people, continue to be embodied, continue to listen, continue to see where your vibration wants to move next. And if you struggle, just be attentive with it. Pull the energy and be around it, be a part of it. And then, begin to see what next really wants to come. What is the next piece of your amazing journey into this world, into creation, into family creation, and to be moving in the directions that it takes you.
Yes, beautiful. And I would add channel Kelly, because it's calming, soothing presence. Yes, and a slowing down, and yes, I love it. Thank you so much, Kelly, for being with me today. I appreciate it. And with everybody else that's listening and watching.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.